Hello everybody, this is Warrior Dan and welcome back to What is the Point Of? The series where I review more or less whatever games come to mind, whether for what they've done right, or, as in the case today, what they've done wrong. Today we're going to be taking a look at Alone in the Dark, Illumination. There is very few games that will drive me to the point of no return, to the point where I am more than willing and, in fact, enthusiastic to just let my character stand there and be brutally murdered, so I can just back out using the game's menu and escape this travesty of a game. The only other game I could think of even being remotely close to meeting this description is The Falling Sun. Although, at least, that game had the saving grace of featuring hilariously awful voice acting that made the entire experience almost somewhat worth it. Alone in the Dark, Illumination does not share any similar redemptive qualities. The first thing you will see when loading up the game is the option to either play solo or co-op. Personally, I'd say if you're going to suffer through the game, it might as well be in co-op mode, since there is absolutely no noticeable difference between the two modes at any point. I would even go so far as to suggest that the developers designed the game entirely around multiplayer, and only late into the development process added in a single-player component, so as to dodge criticism for taking a traditionally single-player-only franchise into a multiplayer-only direction. However, while the avoidance of public outcry and criticism may have been their original intent, I think it's safe to say objectively, factually, and accurately that they failed to meet this goal miserably. The game currently sits at about 24% approval rating on Steam, and as a result the game's rating falls within the overarching bracket of mostly negative. How Steam doesn't consider that overwhelmingly negative, I do not know. So, let's talk about the gameplay. Not that there is that much to talk about. After selecting the mode you want to play, single player or multiplayer, you're presented with an incredibly antiquated level selection menu, one that feels more akin to something released in 2005 than 2015. Here you pick your character class and are able to make a few basic character customizations, before then proceeding to pick a level. The game contains a total of 4 levels, and 4 selectable hero classes. Each hero class has their own distinct primary and secondary weapons, which could be used in combination with one another in order to create a team synergy. Every level starts with these radio-like narration recordings, each delivered with such flat voice work one has to wonder whether the narrator was held at gunpoint throughout the recording process.
The unnatural darkness that blanketed the remote town of Norwich, Virginia did not deter Theodore Ted Carnby. His experience as a supernatural private investigator had taught him that fear makes for a poor traveling companion.
Come on, I don't have all day. You imbecile!
You spend the vast majority of the game going on various fetch quests, aided and abetted by the street lamps, hobo fires, and other sources of light that encompass the otherwise dark and dreary levels. The navigation for these fetch quests is downright terrible. The game will provide highlighted indicators surrounding the object or location that you must travel to, but oftentimes will not update the quest text at the top left of the screen in order to reflect this. There was one quest where I had to find parts for a number of vehicles, likely with the goal of using one of them to escape this accursed level, but once I ran over to the vehicle of my choice and clicked on it as indicated, and saw what parts I needed, the game never bothered to update the quest log to add visual reminders listing what parts I was looking for, nor did I even receive any similar visual highlights pointing me towards said objects. Since this game is partially drawing from games like Left 4 Dead 2, I feel little guilt in comparing the two in this regard. In Left 4 Dead 2, you have this level where the players must find a number of gas cans in order to fill this gas tank needed in order to aid your escape from the zombie hordes. The locations of each of these gas cans are clearly indicated in front of you, and this level is clearly designed with the intention of making the pathways leading to each of these required collectibles as accessible as possible. Here in Illumination, not only is the objective indicators inconsistent at best, but the levels generally feel cluttered, confusing, and lacking clear direction. It's very easy to get turned around because paths that look like they lead in new directions often just loop back to the same place that you started. As a nostalgic third-person shooter, conservation of ammo and slow-paced combat are key parts of the combat system presented here. One of the few creative aspects to combat here is how the game utilizes light as an included factor. When encamped in darkness, enemies are completely bulletproof, but when exposed to a source of light, they become vulnerable and subsequently can be easily killed. This brief glimpse at creativity is quickly eclipsed by the other more abysmally mediocre design choices, opting for possibly one of the laziest and most inexcusable HUD designs in a AAA game ever seen. The designers force the player to constantly monitor their health and stamina meters at the top of the screen at all times, reminiscent of what one might find in your average asset flip game on Steam. The enemies come in only a handful of varieties. You have the basic default zombie, which just half-heartedly waddles towards you at painfully slow speeds. You have the slightly more armored enemy type, which moves somewhat faster and takes longer to kill, and you have a knockoff of Left 4 Dead Spitter, which fires AoE damage over time type projectiles. All these enemies, despite the minor differences in appearance, all share the same distinctly unique characteristic of having extremely, to the point of amusing, poor detection radiuses. You can walk right by many of them, and unless you're close enough to spit at them in the face, they're not likely to notice you. I honestly cannot recommend this game to anyone, and instead recommend this game remain forever in the dark, alone, and forsaken. There are far many better single-player and multiplayer horror games that you might find more illuminating than anything you'll find here. Alone in the Dark Illumination is the Nanny McPhee of gaming. It pretends to be a clever subversion of the audience's expectations, but at the end of the day, the only thing it subverts is basic quality assurance testing. At any rate, that's all the time and effort I can put into talking about this game. Believe me, it's far more time and effort than most players will actually spend playing it. A parting tip for potential game designers. If you're going to design your game solely around one core mechanic, at least take the time to do that mechanic well, instead of trying to drag in and integrate several other concepts on top of it. Less can oftentimes mean more. This is Warrior Dan. I hope you've enjoyed this video, indisputably more than I enjoyed playing this game myself. If you did, the like and subscribe buttons are down below, you know the deal, and I'll see you all in the next video. I'm signing out. Stay awesome everybody, and peace out.